Clayton Mitchell.
Thank you, sir. I rise to take a call and speak to Sue Moroney's Parental Leave and Employment Protection 6 months paid leave and work contact hours amendment bill, sir. And it gives me great pleasure on behalf of New Zealand First to strongly support this, and I'm going to have some time to talk about that, tell some stories. But I have to acknowledge first and foremost the enjoyment that I had, and with much due respect, in fact, Mark Mitchell, who I hold with some sort of regard, did get completely and utterly punked by Denise Roche when he was caught mansplaining, which I thought was very, very funny, sir, and I think very, very apt also. Mr. Speaker, it was only 2 weeks ago that we had Mother's Day here in this country and around parts of the Commonwealth, where we took time out to spend time with our mothers, our matriarchs, our wives, our partners, and actually acknowledged the great job and the great role, a very important role that they have in all of our lives. And I too took that day out with my wife. Unfortunately, my mother lives in Australia, and so I wasn't there, but it was fair to say that contact was made, and we certainly wished we could have been together, because we value our mothers. They are extremely important. And I can't sit here and listen to this government rhetoric that put down the fact that we can't afford to increase paid parental leave. And it's not just about mothers, I'll get to that in a moment, but it is largely to do with that paid parental leave and that engagement that mothers have in early childhood learning. And I can't sit by and listen to this government's rhetoric about saying we can't afford it, because we can't afford not to do this, sir. And as I get further into my speech, I will give you facts and figures and talk about the OECD and what an impact, in a positive manner, that's having in extending paid parental leave and paying adequately those parents to support them so that they can raise their children. And I find myself, like probably everybody in this House, in a very privileged position to be in a position to be able to raise my family. My wife, who looks after our kids full-time, doesn't have to go to work, and that's a choice that we made. But it used to be, sir, many years ago, that a one-income family was enough to raise that family by itself. Right. And invariably, it was the father who would go off to work, as it was in the early years of my childhood, until my mother and father split up, and then my mother, without paid parental leave, was forced to go out to work. Now, it wasn't a choice. She would have much rather stayed home to look after and raise her kids, to make them the best they can be. I could have actually probably been a little bit better had she stayed home. Some of you might have a comment to make on that or not, but who knows? You know, I could have risen right to the top. You know, don't look so prized there, Alistair. Anywho, I say that in jest, but the reality is, very severe, sir, because we aren't doing enough for our mothers at home. And I call it not just good luck, I almost call it divine intervention, and some certainly would, with the fact that Sue Moroney has had this bill drawn out of the ballot twice in 4 years, and we sit here now at the second reading of the very similar but slightly different bill, which actually involved work contact hours to get that through. And of course, earlier this year, we had the Employment Standards Bill that went through the House, which had full support, full cross-party support. New Zealand First also supported the SOP put forward by Sue Moroney to increase those paid parental weeks to 22 and then on to 26 weeks, and it was obviously lost in the House. And of course, we know the story last year in February, of course, when in 2015 the third reading failed to go through for the very same thing. So it is more than luck. This is meant to be. I don't necessarily believe in divine intervention, but I do believe that things happen for a reason. This bill is meant to go through. This bill needs to go through. And let me just draw your attention to how the rest of the world values our mothers and values our families and values the importance of those family nucleus. Now, we've got let me go through Austria. In Austria, they give 60 weeks in paid parental leave. Canada, 52 weeks. 110 weeks in Czech Republic. 50 weeks in Denmark. Estonia give 166 weeks. Finland give 161 weeks, sir. Germany, 58 weeks. Hungary, 160 weeks. It goes on. The average, what do you think the average paid parental leave on a weekly basis, on a basis is in the OECD? 54.1 weeks. That's the average. We are talking about, no, let's get this right. This is about the total paid leave available to mothers. The total leave available. It's not just paid maternity leave. You have to look at the in total. There are only 7 countries in the OECD that are below what we consider fair and reasonable in this country for paid parental leave, which we have only in the last 6 weeks put up to 18 weeks. 7 countries. But get this, let me just list those countries. Those countries are Israel, who give 14 weeks. We've got Mexico, who give 12 weeks. The Netherlands, who gives 16 weeks. We've got Spain, who gives 16 weeks. Switzerland, Turkey, who give 14 weeks. And then we've got the United States, who give no time at all. But interestingly, when you look even further, despite Israel, who only gives 14 weeks of paid parental leave, they pay paid parental leave at 100% of the earnings of that person, of the median income. Now, our median income, we only pay out at 47%. $409 on average to our mothers that we value, that we send flowers and chocolates, that we take the time out to give them kisses and acknowledge their sacrifice. They sacrifice their body, they become selfless to our needs for our entire life, and you can sit there and say that we can't afford it. Well, I challenge you, and I think it was a comment that was raised by Annalise Galloway, show us the money. Show us the money. Well, I'll show you where the money is. Let's talk about the $27 million flag referendum that nobody wanted. What about the $16 million for the Saudi businessmen to build an abattoir in the Middle East that nobody asked for? What about the $126 million that this government found to go and invest into China's infrastructure and not even invest in ourselves? And what about the average or estimated $7.5 billion that's not collected in corporate taxes by this government? Well, goodness me, people, there's a lot of money, and we've only just scratched the surface of how we can make this affordable. This is a cost-benefit analysis or ratio that you have to look at the upside. We have got a degradation of our communities. We have got high unemployment. We have got a disconnect, a social disconnect, a dysfunctional society in many respects, sir. And it was even acknowledged by Paul Foster Bell in current study that was research that was put out, and it's unrefutable. It was impartial. The facts are the facts, and I just want to take a moment to read some of that out. The scientific report, sir, identifies health and behaviour risks for kids in care. It says a boom in daycare is seeing children spend up to 10,000 hours in care by the time they start school. A major childcare report shows increased risks of childhood respiratory illness, obesity, aggression and hyperactivity. The new generation of babies placed in childcare face behavioural and health risks, says a major new scientific review. It goes on to say, Brainwave Trust researchers Kieran O'Neill said they don't want to make parents feel guilty but can't fudge the facts for fear of making people feel bad. One of those is that while there can be benefits for children from 3 years old, there can be risks for children under 3. Those risks increase the younger the child is. We have to implore this legislation. We have to support Sue Moroney's private member's bill. We need to make sure that we value our families, our society, because, sir, at the end of the day, it really comes down to where we are headed, and we are heading for the weeds if we don't look and spend more time inwardly looking at what is going to make a huge impact for the positive future of our communities. Our families grow into growing our economy and making it a safer environment for us to live in, and certainly a happier one. I hope the National Party has a change of heart and we get some support for this bill in the House today. Thank you.
Mr. Speaker.